I've arrived in Pakistan, 18 years since I left the country I grew up in. I was born in Kabul, but crossed the border seeking refuge from the Mujahideen and Taliban, and spent 6 years living here. I remember turning on the TV on the 9th of October 2012 and seeing images of a small girl on a stretcher, with the newsreader saying that she was shot by the Taliban for campaigning for girls' education. I remembered Pakistan as somewhere safe for girls like us to grow up in, but what happened to Malala in the Swat Valley shocked me, and I wanted to find out how something like this could happen and what the girls on whose behalf she was fighting for are going through. I'm on my way to meet Malala's close friends Kainat Riaz and Shazia Razman. They're not as well known as Malala, but they were also shot when the Taliban opened fire inside their school bus. The girls have lived all their lives in Swat and tell me what it was like when the Taliban came in.
We still remember the days when our school would open for one day and close for 10. Nobody could concentrate on their education. When we went outside, the market was shut, there was nothing to eat, and they'd tell us to wear a burqa.
Kainat and Shazia tell me that they would often tune into Taliban FM to find out if the mullah had declared a No Woman Day on the streets of Swat.
They didn't want girls to get an education. They made it impossible for us to go to school. We couldn't even wear our school uniforms because that would identify us as students and put our lives in danger. We were scared. But Malala is the kind of girl that even in those circumstances, she chose to write her diary. She didn't write it against them. She wrote it about herself, about what was happening every day, and that it shouldn't be happening. And why was it happening?
The Taliban wanted to control every aspect of life in Swat, and they did it by using terror. Bombings, executions and floggings in the market became a part of life. At its worst, the Taliban blew up over 400 schools in Swat alone. The situation got so bad that the girls had to abandon their homes. The Pakistani army moved in to fight the Taliban, and the Second Battle of Swat began.
When we finally went back to Swat, we saw so much blood.
What did you see?
I saw a man lying dead near our home.
Everything was destroyed, but we were happy to be home. Although it was rubble, it was still our hometown.
Despite the offensive by the Pakistani army that left the girls' hometown like this, the Taliban remained strong. And then came the attack on the school bus that nearly killed their friend Malala and injured them. This man came and shot young girls. Why? Did you know why?
Why did he shoot us? Because they don't believe girls should go to school. But that's what Malala questioned and what she campaigned for, and it's probably why she got attacked. But how could we know what they were thinking? What went through their minds to shoot small young girls?
I don't know. Now I can even walk, I can even run now.
Malala is now living with her father Zaya-uddin in Birmingham, where she goes to school and receives treatment. But Kainat and Shazia still live in Swat. They go to school but have armed guards, always fearing that the peace offered by the army's presence there may not stop an attack by the Taliban. A few months ago, there was an explosion behind Kainat's house, which scared her and her family.
Our neighbours said that I was the target, but that they missed and hit our neighbour's house.
What happened that day in October has changed their lives completely, and spending a day with the girls, I can see that they still live in fear of the Taliban, but this hasn't deterred them. They believe in Malala's message and will make sure it lives on in Swat.
Our fight is for education, They say that girls shouldn't get an education. We say girls will get an education because it's our right. If it had said in Islam that we shouldn't be educated, then our parents would have stopped us. But our parents support us and tell us that whatever our ambition is, we should try to achieve it. So this is the thing that everybody should fight for, because it's through education that man walked on the moon.
And the fight goes on. Although it's the constitutional right of all children to go to school here, Pakistan has the second highest rate of children not in education in the world, reaching 5.1 million, 3 million of which are girls. And it's got worse as the government has continuously cut funding. In fact, Pakistan spends 7 times more on its military than on primary education. But there are certain types of schools that are thriving, mainly because they're free for the poor.
I'm just at one of the branches of the Red Mosque, which is the famous mosque in Pakistan, and I'm going in there to meet the guy who runs the women's madrasa, which is like the Islamic school for girls. And hopefully, actually I can meet his wife as well, to find out what exactly she does in here and what do girls learn here, what's the point of this school.
The Red Mosque became the battleground between the hardline followers of the madrasa leader and the Pakistani army in 2007. The government launched its offensive in response to vigilante action carried out by the female students. During the clashes, both men and women were armed and fought hard against the government forces. After 9 days of intense violence from both sides, the mullah had lost and dozens of students were killed. I'm about to meet the mullah himself, a powerful man with thousands of devoted followers, a man who's been linked to the Taliban.
For me to be here is a really big deal, and for them to even speak to me is a big deal. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kaise hai aap? Alhamdulillah. मेरा नाम नीलफर है, मैं इस BBC के आई हूँ लंदन में।
I spent over 2 hours with the mullah, and he was meticulous in his efforts to never look directly at me, as this would be un-Islamic in his view. One of his disciples did make the mistake, and he was quickly reprimanded.
He told them to look down, not to look at me. Okay.
For the mullah, what Islam says about your place in society is what matters most, and that's what the thousands of female students that come through the madrasa learn.
A woman has boundaries she has to live within, and men have their boundaries too. Without these boundaries, society would disintegrate, as it has done in the West. Unfortunately, there, women have become playthings.
I'm an educated girl, I'm a journalist, I travel the world. In your opinion, I probably maybe step outside of that Islamic boundaries. Is what I'm doing wrong?
As a Muslim, first of all, you should be wearing a burqa according to Sharia law. Secondly, you shouldn't be travelling around without a male chaperone. It's not right for you to travel abroad without a male chaperone.
It becomes clear that the mullah is not against the education of women, so long as it's the right type. So what did he think about Malala and her campaign for girls' education?
She is a human being, and we would never support the terrible thing that happened to her. It grieved us.
But what was Malala? Malala ke baat mein kya thi jo whoever it was, what was she saying that was different?
There was a reason. She talked about being open-minded and liberal on the internet. She said there's no need for the veil, and she always spoke against Islam. That's why the West like her. She crossed Islamic boundaries, and that is wrong. Islam doesn't allow you to cross those boundaries, and we don't like her crossing them. But we appreciate her educational endeavours.
The temporary building that houses the madrasa is packed full of students devoted to the teachings of Islam.
silent meditation.
So much so that on an average day, up to 80% of the students' time is spent learning about it and 20% on other subjects. They observe the strictest form of Islam, which means that male teachers aren't allowed in the room and teaching is done through speakers and microphones.
So it's like the most unusual lesson in the world in that the teacher's not present in the room. So that loud tannoy is the teacher, and all of these are the students. But because it's so important for men and women to be separate, it's farz, which means it's mandatory. This classroom hasn't got a teacher in it.
It comes down to the mullah's wife to take charge of the day-to-day running of the female section of the madrasa.
Hi.
Hassan sets an example to her many followers and pupils who revere her. She was in the Red Mosque in 2007 and she fought alongside her husband.
We asked Musharraf's government to implement Sharia law, and then they attacked our madrasa. They killed my son, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law and other relatives, along with a lot of students who were children.
But this has only made Hassan more fervent in her beliefs and more determined to pass on her passion for Islam.
Islamic studies is number 1 and every other studies is number 2.
Everything else.
Everything. Yes, science, English, mathematics, computer. Basic studies is number 2. First in Islam. वो कहते हैं कि होने चाहिए, लेकिन वो ये कहते हैं कि co-education system ना हो, पढ़े सारा कुछ पढ़े.
Look, the Taliban have said that girls can be educated, but there should be no co-education. We met with them before Musharraf's attack on our madrasa. The government asked us to invite them over and talk to them about education.
So, you know their scarves, their hijab, it matches the wall. Do you do this on purpose?
Hassan believes that contrary to Western views, it is the burqa that gives her and other Muslim women the power and ability to do what they need to do.
The burqa gives me safety. If I have any meetings with the government, I wear my burqa and I feel very comfortable. I have seen that they respect it. When I go there, they stand up for me. For women like you, they wouldn't stand up. When I sit down, then they sit down. This burqa compels them to respect me.
Me and you were very different.
I asked her if she thought of herself as an extremist.
Yes, I am. What is wrong with that? If you asked a doctor if he's a doctor, why would he be ashamed of that? He has to say, yes, I am.
You're happy to call yourself an extremist?
Yes, I am, and I'm happy about it.
Her views may be extreme, but they're not uncommon. A recent survey of 5,000 young Pakistanis suggests over half believe the current democratic system has not been good for the people, and what's more, they prefer a Sharia system over democracy. Malala, Kainat and Shazia have taken on the fight for better education for millions of girls here, but whatever form it comes in, getting it is still a long way away.